living La Vida low carb. This show is changing lives. We talking about your diet, trying to get you feeling right. Cut up them avocados, fry some eggs, time to explore the longest running health podcast, hosted by Jimmy Moore. Time to give up the crappy garbage. We're getting into ketosis. Every day is a new step to your goal. Yeah, you're getting closer, motivated and focused. Don't stop, just go. Time to get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com.
What is up, Amber?
Hey. Hey, how are you?
How are you, sweetie? So, guys,
I'm good.
That is Amber Wentworth. She is better known online as Lone Star Keto Girl. It's so funny when you go to like conferences and stuff, they go, Living Low Carb Man. Star Keto Girl.
Yes.
We don't have names, we have user names.
That's a true story. Very true.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, I would go to the Paleo FX and the Ancestral Health Symposium back when paleo was a thing. And same thing. It was just, and it was funny. The first time I went to like the Ancestral Health Symposium was 2011, very first kind of paleo conference. And nobody knew what I looked like. They had only heard my voice on my podcast. And so Dr. Lustig, Robert Lustig, comes up to me. Hey, Jimmy, how are you? And so I start talking. And as soon as I talk, Amber, all these like necks started turning around. Oh my gosh, that's Jimmy.
I know that voice.
So it's kind of funny, but thank you for being here today.
Absolutely.
Guys, Lone Star Keto Girl is who she is over on the Instagrams. And she does a lot of great work. You are a podcaster yourself. I've been on your show before.
Yes.
You're now on my show, so here we are.
Yes.
But I put out the call, you guys, recently for people to say, I was like, hey, if you want to come on my show, make a pitch of a topic. And you pitched me this topic. Let me pull out what you wrote to me because I printed it out.
Oh.
I think it'd be cool to talk about what it's like to be judged or fear of judged as an influencer in the diet community. And can I tell you, as soon as you wrote that, I went, oh, good. I'm not the only one.
Oh, no.
Because I remember back in the paleo world, for the record, guys, she's a huge keto weight loss success story, eats more of kind of a carnivore-ish kind of diet now. So huge success. Again, go check her out, Lone Star Keto Girl. And all that she's doing there. And you're also a nutrition and life coach now as such. So, but yeah, I remember in the paleo world, I was kind of the token low carb guy. And then all these CrossFit people were involved in paleo.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And all these guys, hey, bro, what's up, man? You know, and it was just this, I was intimidated as all get out because I'm like, I don't belong here. You know, it was so weird.
Yeah, I get it. And the thing is, you are not alone at all, because like with the meetup that you were at in the Austin area, and there were quite a few influencers there, and you know, we kind of talked, and it even a really big one, big like you, that had such insecurities, because they were like, well, what if I don't look like what they expect me to look like? Like, what if I'm not thin enough? What if I'm not, you know, I don't have the right makeup on or whatever? Yeah. And I'm like, you have got to be freaking kidding me. And they were like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, you're like gorgeous and you're like perfect. And no, and you know who I'm talking about too.
Exactly who you're talking about. She's absolutely stunningly gorgeous and nothing to be worried about. But that's some of the mind games. And this is kind of the challenge. And maybe a lot of you watching and listening right now, you're kind of dibble dabbling in, do I want to kind of be out there a little more? Let me just tell you, if you have those fears of what will people think of me? Will they see this blemish and that blemish? Can I tell you, as somebody that's been doing this 17 years, nobody cares. Seriously.
Unless they're trying to deliberately hurt you. That's the thing.
Well,
because there are those, but
they're not the ones going to conferences.
That's exactly right.
If they're coming to a meetup, and look, I'm on camera all the time. I don't hide that I still have weight on the body and I'm doing something about it. I got a 100-day plan coming up really that I'm doing. And so, but like, I think when you have not have everything figured out and you still have weight on the body and you kind of struggle. That relates so much, Amber, to people more so than, oh, wow, look at the perfect physique I have and my six-pack abs. And a lot of people don't relate to that.
Yeah. Most people don't. Now,
No.
that may be what they want or what they aspire to be like,
Right.
but they can't relate to that. I mean, who can relate? Not very many, to be honest with you. And there's always issues with those people too. They may have like eating disorders. They're not healthy. Mental, yes. I mean, I have interviewed, and I know you've interviewed way more than I have, and I've heard the same story over and over again. And so it is not just the non-perfect people. It's those perceived perfect people that have issues too. So
When I was in the paleo world, that was kind of my first kind of exposure to being at like a conference with people that you're kind of famous, and it was kind of interesting, but watching how some people felt they needed to be all dolled up, and there were certain girls that wore the certain high heels that boosted all the parts of the body that need to be boosted, and they just felt like they needed to represent themselves in a certain way. And when you come to Jimmy Moore, she's what you get. Like, I'm going to hug your neck. I'm going to talk just like I talk on my podcast. I'm no different in person than I am online. And that shocks people, Amber, because I guess
I agree.
people who do fake it.
I've met you multiple times in person. I've got to hang out with you for times, and you are exactly how you present yourself. No doubt.
Same for you, my dear. But like, look, we have nothing to hide. We have nothing to worry about. We just live our lives. But not everybody does that. And to this topic we're on here today, like when you get in the diet world, there is this immense pressure, especially if you had a weight loss success. There's pressure of, oh my gosh, I better not gain back any weight, or it discredits everything that I'm doing, which I can understand on a surface level what that's about. But it's as if diet is the only thing that impacts your weight. And I try to that often in my own work of, hey, if you knew what I've been through the last 2 years of my life, you know a little bit of the story.
I do.
And of course, everybody went through the thing we all been going through. So you would have a lot more sympathy for me if you knew.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, I mean, I'm dealing with the same thing. You think, no, I have issues too. I have had weight gain since this whole silliness started. And it's many different things. It's not just specifically that issue, but everything that caused. And so I had immense stress for various reasons. And, you know, we all have our things. But my cortisol is sky high. Sky high. I've tested it 4 times. I'm going to test it again tomorrow, just to see if there's been a change. I've been doing some different stuff. I have tried, you know, meditation. I've tried breathing. I've tried extra magnesium. You name it, I've tried it. But my cortisol is high. And does that mean my diet is bad? Am I doing something, you know, that I preach but don't do? No. What I tell you I do. That is how I eat. That is not my issue. And so, you know, but we could be judged for that because we should be perfect. If we preach and we do what we said we're doing, then we should reap all the rewards and be this perfect person because, you know, unicorns, rainbows.
Yeah, you see the people that say Jimmy Moore's eating donuts behind the scenes because it's no way he's eating low carb and keto and looks like that. And I'm like, if you saw what I eat, my refrigerator is full of meat, eggs, butter, cheese. I mean, that's it. That's what I eat. And it's amazing to me the suppositions that are made. And this gets to this, you know, when you get famous in the diet world, they expect you to look a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
That's unreasonable. You can't quantify what cortisol is doing to you. You can't quantify what's still dealing with some unresolved traumas and things that you in your life. I've been through a pretty traumatic experience even recently. You can't talk about those things openly because you look like you're whining.
Right. Well, that's true. But it affects you.
With stuff. What?
it affects you greatly.
Yeah.
And I mean, the more I'm taking a lot of different certifications, like cognitive behavior,
Yeah. See,
neuro-linguistic, mindset coach, life coach, all those different things I've been doing through the summer. So I have learned a lot. And now I really, really understand how past traumas, whether they're way long ago, like for me, I was freaking 10 years old, and I know you were young too, or it was last week. It affects you. And until you learn how to deal with that and cope with it and, do what you need to do to fix that, it doesn't matter what diet you're on. I mean, yes, I mean, I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but you're not going to reap the full rewards because you still have all this stuff going on. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They just look at the diet and go, oh, well, if you're eating the diet perfectly, then you should be perfect.
yes, Soul of the Tribe actually had a really cool comment. Emotional well-being needs to be valued a lot more than it is. And look, health doesn't just talk about the physical. Health is intellectual health,
so much here.
soul health, spiritual health, emotional health. All of these things contribute to your health. And I hate it that people look on the outside, Amber, and they say, well, your physical health is obviously horrible, even though you could have wonderful blood markers. There's this assumption that your entirety of your health is predicated on, do you have a belly or not? And if you have one, therefore you're incredibly unhealthy and going to keel over tomorrow. I've actually had people say that. So are you watching? And I'm like, what?
Well, one thing that really caught me and why this really came to the forefront was after we did our interview, and some of the comments I saw made me physically ill. I mean, physically ill. And we kind of talked a little bit about that, but it hurt me to the core because I was like, you're talking about my friend and you do not know. And so that upset me greatly. And it wasn't just you. It was several others that I interviewed who had amazing results, but they weren't perfect yet. They're still on their journey and they were torn apart. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with people?
But
it's like,
this is, unfortunately, Amber, it's not a new phenomenon. I've been at this 17 years. Look, if I had came on the scene the last 2-3 years and that started happening, it would have devastated me just as much. But I've seen this song and dance a little too much in my life.
Yeah, you have.
And so, like, I remember when I first started doing YouTube videos, this is way back 2006, 7. And that was even before I did my podcast, like really got into my podcast. And I was doing all these videos, and I would see the ugliest comments down below. Oh, well, you lost 180 pounds, but it doesn't look like you've lost enough. And I'm like, wow, there is no celebration of progress. There's no celebration
journey
overcoming sugar addiction. Like, I think we need to be more mindful. And look, I have a heart for people. When I'm at these events, I did my own event recently in Jacksonville, Florida, and there were a couple people there. I went out of my way to make sure they felt welcome because I could see it in their eyes. They were terrified that they were judged and looked at. And I'm like, no, not a Jimmy Moore's event. I'm going to make sure you are welcomed. I went and hugged all over them. I went and like talked to them. And of course they felt like they were talking to a star. It's fun to be able to infuse that positivity into people, because guess what? Now that's going to be hardwired in their head of, okay, I'm not judged. I can go live my life and be successful at this. I can do it. Whereas if they got there and they kind of felt shunned, they felt like nobody really wanted them to be there, how motivated would they be to keep going?
I agree. And like the meetup we were at together, and there were several influencers, and social is my thing. It is just my thing. And I really realize that now. But I was going around and I was blah, 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 to everybody. And I could feel that certain people, big influencers, were a little like not sure. And so, I would just chat them up and, drag them around and, introduce them, because I knew quite a few people there because, it's my area. And I've met them before. And so I would like drag them around and kind of, and they kind of started feeling at ease. And then a little bit, I would hear these comments like, I'm just afraid, like, because I put on some weight because, the situation, I'm not changing my eating, but blah, blah. And I was like, oh, please, girl. Hello. Me too. you know, and they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, hello, you know.
At that specific event, I felt nothing of the sort from the people that were there
No, me
otherwise.
either.
And we were like crammed into this little like canopy
Hmm.
area. It was so loud in there.
Yes.
Out to kind of get my eardrums to stop popping so much. But like everybody had a good time. Had a couple hundred people there.
Hmm.
Everybody was happy to be around other people. And then yeah, there was probably about a dozen of us influencers there. And everybody had a good time. And
They did.
no judgment. And look, I have a lot of weight on my body I don't want right now. And you want to talk about potentially wanting to feel upset by that. I had every right to, but I've done this, Amber. I've gone down this path. I stopped beating myself up because I used to beat myself up of, oh, what will they think of me? Blah, blah, blah. Now I come to the conclusion of, okay, no, I don't look the part, but what we're doing right now with me podcasting, that's something of value I add to this community.
Mhm.
I know my health markers. I don't have to have a LED lights across the front of my chest telling everybody what my triglycerides and my insulin and my blood sugar and all these markers are, because I know what those are. And this is kind of the bottom line I wanted to make sure we communicated today is it doesn't matter what other people think.
No.
They're going to nitpick about anything. I remember when I got down and I lost 180 pounds, there were still people that said, it's not good enough. And I'm like, really? That's the message you want to leave someone? And I'll say, this was in the early days, it messed with my head of, well, is it not good enough? And I came to the conclusion after many years of worrying about it, you just got to let what people are going to say go, because they're going to say what they're going to say. You're too ugly. Your nose is too big. Your ear sticks out, whatever. And so you just be confident in who you are, always pursue health, and let the chips fall where they may.
I agree. Like before I went to the event, I admit I was very apprehensive because I was worried of being judged and not, you know, being the perfect, because I know how ugly people can be. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. I don't care. I'm going to wear my flashy boots that I wear. I am going to wear my flashy jewelry because that's what I do. That is me. That is who I am. I don't care if it draws attention and people go, oh, good Lord, that's fine. I'm over it. I don't care.
And girl, you looked good. You really looked good. And you felt confident. You could tell confidence was there. I'm going to tell you a story. I was at KetoCon 4 years ago, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
This guy came up to me and he said, Jimmy, don't you think you should be doing something about it? And I said, don't I think I should be doing something about what? He said, you're really obese and that's not making keto look good.
Oh,
I'm like, sir, with all due respect, like I'm trying to stay calm. Sir, with all due respect, it's none of your business what my journey is. Congratulations on your journey, but I'm on my journey. Well, I just think you'd be a better representation if you blah, 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 blah. And then the unsolicited advice of, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried that? Dude, I have interviewed all the people that do all the things. Don't you think I know?
I wrote books on this very thing. Hello. Yeah.
So it's amazing, the presumptuousness. Now that's rare. I don't usually have people in person because I'm 6'3". I will usually have heads in, or at least have the look like I will. And this guy, you know, he was harmless, but it was very shocking that somebody would have that gall to come up to me like that.
Yeah.
But it does go to show you kind of culturally, we have, or social media probably has allowed people to be that way.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's the fear. That's the thing, that when you go to these conferences and you're in the diet world, people have that expectation that they can literally say anything to you because they do it online all the time. Why not in person? Somebody's going to do that one of these days and not have a nice guy, and they're going to punch them or something.
That's right. And it might be me.
Yeah,
you never know.
Exactly. So Carnivore Shrink says, people shouldn't compare anyone to an ideal physique. It should be about your own health journey in comparison to you before and during. And it's not even about weight loss. Like people are like, well, have you reached your weight loss goal? I'm like, weight loss isn't the goal. health gain is my goal. And so if I'm pursuing health, okay, the weight will eventually follow, but let's not get the cart before the horse. Health is my goal, not weight.
Yes. And you know, that took me 40 years to figure that out.
Yes.
And it was always about weight. It was always about how I looked out on the outside. I would spend hours dolling up and doing my hair and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I had to be, you know, I wanted to be that 00, and I wanted to weigh, you know, 100 pounds and blah, blah, blah. And I did do that. But was I healthy? No. And I'll guarantee I wasn't healthy up here, because guess what? I had eating disorders. I was, my health deteriorated. No,
Yeah.
that's no.
Models, you hear them getting interviewed and they ask them about their mental health. They're all on mental health drugs.
Yep.
And then they have the added pressure of the industry execs and different ones that, oh, you can't gain 2 pounds or you're off the chute. And it's yeah. And so we do that to ourselves, because that industry tells you that's the perfection of what a woman should look like. And so do it, you reach the 00, and then you're like, okay, I kind of look kind of good, but I feel like crap, and mentally I'm a wreck.
That's exactly right. And I have talked to those people, like I know you have too, many of them, you know, who are fitness models, who are bodybuilders, and there was a very common thread of exactly what you said. I mean, and to have to maintain that, because if you reach that level, you're expected to stay that level. And that is not sustainable. Good gosh, that is hard.
Are you tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.
And that's something else I want to bring up here. So I lost 180 pounds on the Atkins diet. It's what I'm most famous for, kind of launched me into the community. People have that initial weight loss, that initial thing that got them to where they are now, talking about whatever they're talking about. Who's to say you're supposed to stay at that weight? Who's to say that as you get older, things don't develop that maybe were already developing when you were losing the weight, before you were losing the weight, we're already in development. And then suddenly you lose weight, but then these other things start to manifest. See, we have this mistaken notion that when you eat low carb, keto, carnivore, real food, whatever, when you eat that way, just magically all of these predispositions just go away. And I think that is such a flaw in the thinking of the community that I'm glad we're talking about this openly today, and you're the perfect person to do this with, because you have that heart for people too.
Oh yeah, very much so. I was always that person that I physically felt other people's emotions, and it would hurt me even as a little bitty tiny kid, you know, this little short thing, because you know how short I am. You know I'm short. And I would be the one that would stand up for the kids who got picked on, because it physically hurt me. And so yes, to see that happen, and like I said, when I saw that happen to you, I was like, oh, and this little 5'2" thing was ready to go to war. You know, it was like, no, you're not messing with my friends or my family, because this is just not okay. Yeah, it's disgusting to me, and I just don't understand people like that, and I never will. I mean, I've tried. I can't. I mean, I understand it's their issue, not ours, but you know, it just blows me away.
Yes. Karen said, I also have the same issue, but judging from all my friends on medication and dying, I'm good. And is in my heart. Yeah, that's true. Like, I tell people, I'm like, all right, the people that judge me, okay, maybe they still eat a lot of junk themselves. Maybe they have some disease. I have no chronic diseases other than fat on the body, obesity. I don't have any chronic diseases. I'm not on any medications. I don't really even take a lot of supplements. I live healthy. And I the thing that I love the most about my health journey, Amber, is not so much the weight loss that I experienced. It's this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have calmness in my mind. I have such mental acuity, able to like have conversations and intellectual ones, think deeply, creative out the hilt. I'm always creating new content all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, you can't trade that for
I
nothing.
agree. 100%. Yep.
Yeah. So on the realm of kind of being famous in the diet world, I feel like people think you're supposed to be this, you've got it all figured out. You know, I get that a lot of, okay, well, you've been at this a while, you figured it out. I'm like, no, I'm figuring it out. I have some knowledge and I have the ability to think things through, and I have access to, thankfully, all these experts I've interviewed over the years, but I ain't got it figured out. If I had it figured out, number one, you'll never have it figured out. Let's just put that out there. Even the smartest person in the diet world, they still don't have it figured out. And so for some reason, there is a very loud truck outside my
I can hear it.
very loud. I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, they haven't gotten it figured out either. They're making too much noise about live. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, because the thing is, what people don't get is that as your situation changes, as you change, your body changes. It changes, and it can depend on so many factors. And hello, menopause, okay? And that's probably part of my issue. Probably getting right in the, you know, I'm 55, so hello, it's getting kind of to that point. But your body changes, and you cannot keep doing the same exact thing for your entire life. It doesn't work, because you evolve, and you have to evolve as you evolve. You know, people don't really understand that, because you think if you have the perfect formula, that's it.
Well,
No.
This is what the folly of it only being about weight loss is, because the thing that helped you lose weight at 25 is not the same one that's going to help you lose weight at 40. It's not going to be the one that helps you lose weight at 55. They can't be all the same diet. You're going to have at least some tweaks to the energy content, to the macronutrient makeup. Maybe when you're younger and you're more insulin sensitive, you can get away with more carbohydrate. But as you get to menopause, post-menopause, and beyond, you need to be more low carb. There's so many little nuances like that if you're not shifting with it, you run into problems and you go, oh no, it worked 20 years ago. Well, yeah, the 20-year ago version of yourself, it worked for that person, but not for the person you are now.
That is exactly right. And I deal so much with this with my clients. And, and as we go back to the whole mindset thing too, it's not the food. To me, that is the easy part. Easy. The other part is what's hard. It's the mental aspect and all of that. That's what we have to deal with. And, learning your body, learning when something isn't working anymore, understanding that your body is changing. And see, I think that's what's the difference with me right now. When I look in the mirror, I'm not like going, ooh, dang girl, you the bomb. No, because I'm not happy that I did put on some weight after working so hard. That upsets me, yes. But I now, instead of going, you fat pig, in the mirror, and yes, I've done that, I now go, okay, you know what? Something's going on. Something is changing. Now I need to figure it out again. It's okay. My body is doing what it needs to do right now. It's this amazing biological machine, and I need to figure out what I can do to help it. And, it's not its fault. I used to blame my body, and now I don't do that anymore. And, I recognize it's not where I want to be. Okay. But
can I tell you that I think sometimes when people run into the issue where you are in your journey, where I am in my journey, there is this sense of desperation. Well, I need to do the most extreme thing I could possibly think of. Let me fast for 100 days. Let me just eat 500 calories. You do all these really weird mind games with yourself.
Yep.
Because the desperation to not be where you are right now anymore is so strong, and especially when you are known in the diet world. And
Yeah.
I've had that pressure on for a very long time. And it wasn't until I got comfortable with where I am at this very moment, wherever that is, at this very moment, where I am, I'm comfortable there with the knowledge that I can be doing things to work on myself. Then it takes the desperation part away. And like this 100-day thing I'm about to start on September the 1st, it's all going to be on Jimmy's timing, Jimmy things I want to do that I think if I do them and do them all consistently, I should see results. And so I'm not doing it out of desperation. I'm doing it out of, okay, I have a knowledge base. I've analyzed this a little bit. I've reached that point where I know I need to get this under control. I'm about to turn 50 this year. So a lot of things went into it, but desperation was not one of them.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I'm at now too. You know, I have a calmness. It's like, okay, you know what? This is a journey. This is a lifelong thing we're talking about. This is not I have to lose 50 pounds by, you know, January 1st because I have a wedding to go to or be in. It's not about that anymore. It's my time. It's what I need to do. I need to take steps to figure out what's going on with me. And, you know, I've got it narrowed down pretty well now. And now just to figure out, you know, how to really deal with that more effectively. And I'm looking at it completely different. You know, I'm looking at it, you know, how can I help my body? I guess in a way I still think of my body as separate than this, which I've always done. But it's always been from a hate standpoint, where now it's more like, how can I work with you? Because I know you're trying to do your best. What can I help you with, you know, mentally?
So Amber, I think a lot of the mindset that you and I are articulating is partly a product of our age. Once you get over kind of 40, 45, you really don't give a bleep anymore about a lot of things you're used to. And so how do you help some of your younger clients that you work with kind of deal with those mind games that come naturally? How do you kind of reassure them that, okay, maybe you don't need to worry about it as much?
Yeah, I that is my focus really, is working with the mindset, reframing how you look at things, reframing how you look at yourself, and trying to fix the relationship with yourself as well as a relationship with food, you know, eventually, because, you know, it always goes back to food, but there's so much more to it. And so, you know, we just kind of break it down and say, okay, well, what is the issue here? Let's look at this. And okay, how about instead of thinking this way, maybe try, you know, talking to yourself this way. And I think a lot of the issues we have is because we talk so incredibly negative to our own selves. And we would never do that to another person. Okay, most of us wouldn't. There are a few. But, you know, if you hear something enough, it becomes the truth. We know that very well right now, don't we? But yeah, if you keep telling yourself like I did in the mirror, oh my God, you're a fat pig. Holy crap, you look bad. And then guess what? I believed that.
You know what? I had my friends start calling me out on that stuff. My best friend, Brittany, if I go negative at all in a conversation, say,
it's hard not to fall back into that pattern.
It really,
because that's kind of a human thing. I don't know if it's learned or biological or what. I don't know. But
and I'll tell you, some of mine it was reinforced when I was a kid and I was going through my trauma, getting beat and berated and everything. And so that's hardwired into my brain. And so that's a lot of this beating ourselves up. We were hardwired not to love ourselves, not to want to think in a positive manner. We go to the negative because that's how we learned.
Yeah, I remember, you know, like my issue started when I was like 10 and I started to develop, and I've said this many times, but that was humiliating for me because it was like fat, you know, like, because, you know, well, it is fat, but you know what I mean? And the other girls were bored thin and flat chested. And so they bullied me. The girls did. They bullied me.
And you got the boys, and they were jealous of you for that.
Probably. You know, and it was just awful. And so I had this preconceived notion that there was something wrong with my body. And so, I did everything I could because apparently it was because I'm fat, which I was not. And so, that's why I was a full bulimic and anorexic at the age of 15,
Yes.
because that kept playing in my head. And, then it didn't help reinforcement from your family. And it was not meant really ugly, really. It was, like, ooh, do you think you really need that second helping? Ooh, should you be eating that? Or, ooh, just, and like I was called a tank. And when
Yeah.
I look at pictures of myself back then, I'm like, what the hell? I mean,
But look how powerful those images
Uh-huh.
were. I remember Brittany on our One Step Deeper podcast recently. She told a story about when she was 8, and she was at this luncheon thing with all of her family, and her cousins were all in a room together with her. And so they said, "Hey, Brittany, go get a bunch of desserts, bring them in here, and we'll share them." So Brittany goes and piles up this plate full of desserts. And as she starts to walk back towards where the room was with the cousins, a family member said, "See, and that's why you're fat." 8 years old.
Ooh.
It so ruined her
Ooh.
psychologically that
Mm-mm.
to this day it still bothers her.
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, it is amazing. And that's what sometimes I have to get through to my clients is that if they've done everything and they think that, and there's something I feel. And so I'll ask them, is it possible that there might be something in your past that has affected you, even if you may not be consciously aware of it? And I've had multiple people just all of a sudden break down crying, and I'm like, oh, there it is. Ooh. And you know what? That occasionally happens to me. Somebody will say something that triggers something in me that I thought I dealt with. And it
Yeah.
was like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yes.
So it is, you have to work on that. And it's a lifelong thing. When you've been so traumatized over something, I don't care what other people think is a trauma. If it's a trauma to you, it's a freaking trauma. And that annoys me. Oh, just get over it. It wasn't that big of a deal. Really? Did you live in my head? Did you? Because if you didn't, then no.
You know what the curse is for those of us that eat for ketosis is ketosis makes your mind so clear and vivid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get things. And I've got like a movie that plays. I can see as a teenager my head getting thrown into walls, being punched.
Oh, no.
I see it all vividly, and I hear those words as if they're being audibly spoken to me. I can hear them in my mind's eye from my dad telling me, "Oh, you're not good enough for any girl, will never want you," blah, 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 all this kind of like nonsense. But it's still there. So like subconsciously, it's still there.
Yeah.
And so that kind of reverberates when you kind of show up on the scene and you're trying to pretend like you've got everything figured out, and then those things are all swirling. If people could see the little bubbles above my head when I like am in any given scenario, you'd be like, "Whoa, dude."
Boom, 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 boom.
All that.
Yeah, that is so true. Oh my goodness. And that does happen to me too. I mean, and if you're real with yourself, unless you happen to be one of them lucky unicorn kind of people, we all have something and we may not even know it. And, going through the cognitive behavior therapy and all this kind of stuff, it has never been so clear to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, good gosh, this is the missing piece. If you don't have this piece, it doesn't matter what diet you go on. It will never be a, long-term thing because it can't. Because there's too much trauma that hasn't been dealt with. And sometimes you will never, ever get over it, but you can learn to deal with it, accept it, understand where you're at, and work with it.
Yeah, you haven't heard of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, go look it up. Definitely hire this little lady here when she's finished with all her certification. It's a little controversial. I remember when I first started about it, because I started using it last year when I was dealing with a lot of my childhood trauma and this thing that I just came out of. And people are like, well, it doesn't work for everybody. It can make things worse for some people. Okay, but it's helpful for enough people that I felt like I wanted to talk about it. And
don't you think though that like if you're honestly in tune with your client, and there's, you got to kind of do your thing, right? But if you're in tune, you can kind of feel if it's right or not. It doesn't, you don't always need to go there, but sometimes you feel, I just feel something, like something is just not quite there. And so, I'll just kind of like mention a little bit and just kind of get a feel for it. And then it's like, oh, yep, there it is. And I mean, been there, done that.
Yes. So Joshua said, my journey only started after I accepted and forgave myself. And like that is so good, Joshua, because
yes,
I do feel like we beat ourselves up because we've been beat up by other people. And so those messages become a part of our own conscious thought, but it's not our thoughts at all. They were thoughts that were fed to us. And when you realize, oh my gosh, I don't really believe that. Why did I believe that? You kind of go, all right, that's over. Now we're going to believe what I believe, and then you can live your life.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Good for you, Joshua.
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.
He also said trauma, I heard, can be described either as death by 1,000 cuts or the one big thing. Both are trauma. Comparing them does not help. Yeah, I don't know which would be worse. One big thing or death by 1,000 cuts, meaning just little trauma, little trauma, little trauma.
Yeah.
Eventually it gets you. I think I'd rather have the one big, because at least you have memory. Like my dad, it's so easy for me to say, okay, he beat me and he emotionally berated me. He did sexually abuse me one time as well. And I can identify him as kind of the trigger of all the trauma kind of beginning. But what's funny is that trauma then begot trauma afterwards, because I was already a traumatized person at that point. Whereas it wasn't just that incident. And so it wasn't until I recognized the initial trauma that then I could start to unravel that it was a trail of trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of with you though, because like, you have these little things and they may not be these huge things, but it's little things, but then another little thing, another little thing, another little thing, another little thing. Then you get that message and you're like, ooh, wow, I really am a piece of crap. I don't deserve. And that's the sad thing. And this is what I tried to describe in one of my videos about, this being real thing. It's like, there's a different side to that too, because for so many years when I looked, like that, it was, I didn't feel I deserved to look good. I didn't deserve to wear makeup. I didn't deserve to have jewelry. I actually even told my kids to take back the necklace they got me as a gift because I didn't deserve it. I said that. Wow. And I regret it because it broke my kid's heart. And it was like, see, trigger. But it's those little things that you're just like, I didn't feel I deserved it. But now it's like, yes, I do. I've worked hard, and I've done nothing wrong. I deserve to, be happy, be healthy, wear makeup. I don't care. Wear my flashy bling boots. I don't care. I wear sparkle tennis shoes too, just like, and I would have never done that before because I didn't want anybody looking at me. I just wanted to kind of like be that fly on the wall and kind of skirt around. I wanted to observe, but I didn't want anybody to notice me. Now I'm like,
So I want to tell another story about famous online in the diet world. This was back when I did the low carb cruises. I don't do those anymore. They still do it, but I decided to move on. And so one of the speakers that we had, very prominent name, you would know this person, came, and there were these whispers that they were, quote, too thin. And I'm going, come on, guys. When I heard that, I was like, crap. Like, I can see you coming at me because I have extra weight on my body. But you're going to come at somebody because they're, quote, too thin, and they were, oh, they must be anorexic. They're starving themselves, this and that. And I'm going,
Yep.
What?
Yep.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it was that right there, Amber, that made me go, you know what? Screw you if you think you're going to judge me ever again. Because this person is the pinnacle of being healthy. Yes, they're thinner than most people, but I would put their health up against literally anybody's.
But I know who you're talking about. And I have interviewed people in that same boat. And like, I got comments about you. I got comments about them. What is wrong with her? She looks like she has an eating disorder and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yes, she did. And she's recovering from that. You should have seen the before. So no, you don't know somebody's journey. So why do you judge until you know? I've been in those people's shoes. Because I'm like, if you looked at the two pictures side by side, you'd be going, holy cow, this chick is healthy, you know?
I look at Rebecca Farmer.
Yes.
The perfect example. She was 69 pounds in 2019.
So
Today,
crazy.
135 pounds of muscle and put back on, eating carnivore. She's remarkable, and I love that girl. Yeah,
me too.
I'm really good friends behind the scenes, and so I think we just, you know, what would solve a lot of this issue we're talking about here today is if we all showed one another a lot more grace, kindness, compassion, genuine love for fellow human. And here's the other thing: be the biggest cheerleader for one another.
Yes.
Judgy, the passive aggressive language, the how dare you look like that, you're a horrible representation, blah, blah, blah. I wrote a post about this yesterday. I'm the black sheep of keto.
I saw that.
That perception that people have of, well, you're a horrible representation of ketogenic diet, so how dare you keep being an influencer? And I'm like, screw you. I've done more for this community than probably most people out there. But like, people want to judge, and I'm like, no, kindness, support, love. All we need is love.
But I don't think it's in us, honestly, to not be like that. Because I know that is just something I just naturally do, because that's how I feel.
Yes.
Because I don't feel like I'm in competition with anybody. I want everybody to be healthy and happy. And that's why we do what we do, because we want to help. We want to give our experience and knowledge. And maybe somebody can learn. Good Lord, I spent 40 years dealing with this crap. And if I can keep somebody from having to do that, that's what I feel like I was meant to do. Because why else would I have gone through what I went through? And let me tell you, that was trauma.
Yes.
So, and I wasn't abused or anything like that, but that was trauma. And I don't want anybody else. I don't care if they're the worst enemy. And I can name you a few people that I'm not particularly fond of right now, but I would not wish that on them. Anyone.
Keto Meal Mama says the judgment happens all the time. You really can't win. If you gain a little weight, oh, you're getting fat, you're eating donuts, you're cheating. Oh, if you lost too much, oh, you're anorexic, you're on an eating disorder. You can't win. So you're right. 20 Bevy Girl says, I'm losing weight, getting healthy, and people ask me, are you sick? No, I'm just getting healthy. I'm like, I got that when I was in my initial weight loss, and I got down, I was 180 less pounds. So it was very obvious I lost a ton of weight. And people are like, oh my gosh, do you have cancer? I'm like, what? What?
Wow.
Lose weight?
Wow. Yeah, you can't win. You just can't win. That's why, and I'm trying to develop a thicker skin. And luckily, the attacks that I've got haven't really been about physical appearance or not being real or whatever, but The attacks are more like knowledge based, like misinformation, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, and so I'm having to develop a thicker skin, and it's hard because I'm like, whoa,
Yes.
what did I do to you?
Yes.
It's
Oh,
like,
I get it all the time. What are you doing talking about keto and cholesterol and fasting? You don't have an MD, PhD, RD. I'm like, I did write a few books with
darn good books. One of my first books. Thank you very much.
written a few best-selling books. Thank you
I
very
have
much.
them right over there on my shelf. Yes, that was I think your book was the first book that I got on the subject, and I read that book to my husband as we drove from Texas to New Hampshire. That's what we did.
The cholesterol one, is that what you
Yes,
said? Yeah.
yes, I sure did.
Do that when I was on your show. That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you do Moment of Clarity quote, Dr. William D? Because I had to read the book to that one, and it was
Oh my goodness.
the audiobook I ever did, and they said change your voice for the Moment of Clarity quotes, and I'm like, kind of a whisper when I do this. I'm like, yeah, that'll work. Of Clarity quote, Dr. William Davis.
Oh, that's hysterical. Oh, now I'm gonna have to go get the audio.
Yes, the audiobook is hilarious. What was funny was they didn't even have an audiobook division. This was 2013 when that came out. They didn't have an audiobook division, but I was a very established podcaster at that time. And they're like, and all my fans were like, hey, you need to do an audiobook. And so I went to my publisher that we don't have a division. I said, but I've got a recording studio. I can do it. And I did. I recorded it, and
Whoa.
it was the very first one. And then my next book was Keto Clarity. I had to do one for that one. So the first two audiobooks with my publisher were mine. And then I ended up doing 6 of my books as audio.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's hard. That is something I have not done. But
Yeah.
when I was published, they weren't really big into the audio. It was kind of after I kind of
Yeah.
stopped doing that.
Yes.
And so that's when that became big. So I never did that. But I heard it's not easy.
And it's much bigger now. Like when Cholesterol and Keto Clarity first came out in audiobook, it did okay. But like I'd say over the last 4 or 5 years, like the sales went way up. It's like people doing car rides.
Right.
Like a podcast.
On a walk, in the gym. Yeah. Like my son is a UPS driver, and he listened to podcasts all day long while he's delivering. So, he actually listened to my podcast. I was like, what? Because he would say stuff and I'd be like, get out of here.
Yes.
Listen to my podcast.
I have people come up to me at conferences. They're like, we just took a 9-hour drive and all we heard was Jimmy Moore's voice. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Because they got a lot of, hey guys, we're back here on the Living La Vida Low Carb Show with Jimmy Moore. That anymore. But back in the day, that was my kind of opening with every.
Yeah.
And today I've got Amber Wentworth here, Lone Star Keto Girl. Sherry says, I have not lost any weight yet, but I can definitely tell my body is healing itself. And that's great, Sherry. That's the thing. It's
huge.
That, to me, that's a lot more exciting than some arbitrary weight loss on a gravity pulling machine.
Amen. And it's get healthy to lose weight, not lose weight to get healthy. So, if you focus on that, and it alleviates that stress of having to reach this, arbitrary goal. You're focusing on something that can be lifelong. And once you can establish true health, and it is fabulous. I never understood, but I do now. And then it just makes everything easier. Not saying you won't have challenges, but it makes life easier.
So, Amber, I want to leave on a positive note because maybe there are people who have had a nice success story in their health, in their weight. They're worried about a lot of these things. I talk to people all the time. I'm always pushing people to become a podcaster, to put yourself out there. I help with branding. I come up with all kinds of things for people, writing books. And they're just like, the big reticence is, what will people think of me? And so give some encouragement to those people as we close out the show.
Yeah. Okay. And this is something that I've learned, and believe me, this is a recent thing I've learned, and I'm 55. You got to get right with yourself. You have to just, I don't want to go into the love yourself thing because I am so not at that point. But, you give yourself grace and understand, that you're on a journey and you're always going to be judged. But as long as you are being true to yourself and doing what you're meant to do, then nobody else's opinion matters. Because at the end of the day, it's about you. You have to go to bed with yourself. You have to live with what you've done. And if you are happy with that, then who the hell cares what anybody else thinks? And it is a hard thing. And I still struggle with that. I'll admit it, but I'm getting better and better every day because I know what I'm doing. I'm on the right path. And I and I know, what I have had to go through was for a purpose. And so, get right with yourself and just be proud of where you are. Enjoy the journey, do what you need to do. And other people's opinion, at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter. Are they paying your bills? Are they the ones giving you love? Are they the ones that are giving you the necessities of life? Because if they're not, then they have no value anyway, really.
What's hard is for those of us who are empaths and people is we always want to see the best in people. And I know you're that way. Oh, yeah. I'm that way. Most
to
of
my detriment.
That way. And so when you're a people person, you take what people have to say a little bit harder. And I always, even to this day, Amber, even the people that come at me hard, I always give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe somebody peed their cornflakes. Something happened. I always come back with kindness and try to anyway.
Yeah, you do very, very, very well. Because some of the comments, I'm like, you go, Jimmy. That was good.
Unless they're just like overtly ugly.
Yeah.
If they're just like down your throat ugly, block, delete, move on with my life. But I always usually give people the benefit of the doubt of, okay, maybe you didn't mean it as harshly as it came across. So let's try that again. I'm gonna give you an instant replay. I'm gonna give you a mulligan on this one to do a golf term, and let's see how you do. And sometimes, Amber, they'll come back, oh my gosh, I didn't mean for it to come across that way, and then it's cool. But sometimes they'll double down and come back harder, and I'm like, okay, block, delete. You make it easy to get rid of the idiots out there.
I'm learning. It's a little hard because I'm like you. I want to believe the best in people, and I keep thinking, well, maybe I misunderstood them, or maybe they misunderstood me, or maybe. And I don't want to be that person who is in an echo chamber either. And so I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm going to block anybody who doesn't have my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with the difference of opinion, but I do have a problem being attacked for my opinion.
That's right. Well, and that happens a lot. People are like, well, you don't like anybody that disagrees with you. I'm like, no, I actually welcome
you do.
disagreeable disagreement, because disagreeable means you're being an asshole, and I don't put up with assholes on my page. So
you don't have to. That's the thing. And that's what I'm learning. It's just taking me a little bit more time.
This is my dictatorship, and if you don't want to be a part of my page, don't come on my page.
Along.
Or here's the other thing. Here's the revolutionary concept. If I write something that pisses you off, blown by. Like, it's not hard. I feel like people that they want the right to never ever be offended, and guess what? We're in a.
It ain't gonna happen.
If I'm uttering an opinion, somebody's gonna be pissed about it.
That's so funny that you just did that, because 2 days ago I did just a little reel. I haven't posted it yet, because I was just aggravated with people. It was that day everybody was, so many people posting, you don't know what you're talking about, you're stupid. And I'm like, oh good. And then later I found out why that happened, but whatever. But I did the little, if you don't like something, scroll. And so I'll be posting that soon. That's so funny, because I did exactly that, because it was like one thing after another, but it was like this, how they get a group and they all attack, and it makes it seem, worse than what.
It's the Me Too effect is what I call it. Like when one person says something that's contrary to what's written, you get a bunch of me too, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too, and it just cascades. That's why I always try to nip it in the bud to address that initial person immediately when I see it. Now, sometimes I'm doing a podcast and then somebody will write something ugly, and I get out of a podcast and it's 20 or 30 deep at that point. I'm like, all right, I just have to delete it at that point because there's no sense in letting all that negativity stay.
I agree.
I mean, not about negativity. So,
No. Who got time for that? I don't have time for that. No.
so guys, go check out Amber Wentworth. She is Lone Star Keto Girl over on Instagram, and she does lots of great work. You guys, if you need a good health coach, nutrition coach, life coach, she does all of the above. Definitely go check out her link tree. She's got lots of little links there underneath her Instagram page, YouTube videos. You do a lot of great interviews. I was on your show.
Yes, you were.
And so definitely go check it out, you guys. Amber, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's fun as always. Love chatting with you.
Get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com. Woo!
Real Good Foods is one of the fastest growing frozen food companies in the U.S. Everything they make is nutrient dense, high in protein, low in carbs, and made from real food ingredients. They make food for every occasion: breakfast sandwiches, poppers, enchiladas, entrees, and pizza. So whether you're on a keto diet, trying to cut back on your carbs, or just trying to eat healthier, they make super convenient and tasty options. RealGoodFoods.com and @RealGoodFoods on social media.